dignitaries. My name is Okunuwa Holubume Precious, and as a still student of Ebilene Memorial Group of School, Higbokoda, I'm here today to refute the notion that negligence of education sector is responsible for the present state of our nation. The Chief Judge and attentive listeners, permit me to give you 5 compelling points to convince you all beyond reasonable doubt why this argument is flawed. First is problem of poor economy. Negligence of education sector cannot be accountable for the present state of our nation. When economic factors such as unemployment and poverty plays a significant role. In ILAJE local governments and across Nigeria, many individuals are unable to afford a quality education due to financial constraints. This economic disparity affects education outcomes and hinders the progress of a nation as a whole. Therefore, it would be unfair to single out the education sector without considering the broader challenges faced by our society. Secondly, poor governance and bad policy hinder the progress of a nation. The present state of our nation cannot be attributed solely to negligence of education sector alone, but governance and policy issues that extend beyond education. In Nigeria, for instance, there have been cases of corruption and mismanagement of funds allocated to education sector. This mismanagement reduced the availability of resources, infrastructure development, and overall quality of education. Negligence of education is just one of a larger problem related to poor governance and bad policy. Then, why do you have to make education the scapegoat? Also, socio-cultural factors hamper the growth of a nation. Negligence of education sector cannot be considered the cause of the present state of our nation. When socio-cultural factors also significantly impact education outcomes, factors such as marriages, gender disparities, lack of awareness about education can hinder progress. Attributing the nation's challenges solely to negligence of education sector neglect the complex interplay of socio-cultural factors that affect educational development. In addition, infrastructural challenges pose a big problem to the nation. Neglect of education sector is undoubtedly a concern, but it is crucial to recognize infrastructure challenges that contribute to the present state of our nation. In ILAJE local government and other areas across Nigeria, insufficient infrastructure, including dilapidated school buildings, lack of libraries, insufficient teaching materials, can hinder effective learning. The infrastructure deficits are not solely caused by negligence of education sector, but are influenced by broader issues such as poor allocation of resources and mismanagement. It is imperative to address infrastructure deficit alongside negligence of education sector to bring about a meaningful change. Finally, Nigeria as a nation has failed in its multi-sectoral responsibility. Blaming the negligence of education sector alone oversimplifies the issues and fails to acknowledge the multi-sectoral responsibility required for societal development. In Nigeria, for instance, the factor responsible for the present state of our nation does not lie solely with negligence of education sector alone, but with other sectors, including healthcare, agriculture, infrastructure, and governance. Negligence of education sector cannot be held responsible without considering the collective responsibility across sectors. In conclusion, while negligence of education undoubtedly contributes to the present state of our nation, negligence of education challenges, blame on negligence of education challenges rather contributes to the present state of our nation. When economic factors such as economic factors, infrastructure challenges, socio-cultural factors, multi-sectoral responsibility failure immensely contribute to the present state of our nation. Once again, I remember humble self, Okunuwa Holubume Precious. Thanks to all for listening.
It takes courage to stand before crowd and speak. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, shall we give Omi a round of applause, please? Now, calling on the seventh speaker for today. The seventh speaker for today is Wade Kike Lomo from Pure Wisdom College. Shall we clap our hands together for her?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please, before Wadi comes on stage, please, let's try as much as possible to minimize our noises. And please, if you know you are standing because of the food, please, let's sit down because it will definitely get to you. Please, let's try to minimize the noise so that our panel of judges here can hear these guys very well. Thank you very much.
In Abraham Lincoln's oratory fecundity, he famously asserted, "My dream is of pleasant time, where America will once be seen as the last best hope of the earth." Can the aforesaid be said of the Nigerian state in the face of infrastructural decay, moral decadence, sectoral disarticulation, economic stagnation, large-scale corruption, gross misappropriation and mismanagement of public funds, leadership recklessness, insecurity, ethnic and gender bias, and religious intolerance? The above, caused largely by the neglect of the education sector, summarizes the present state of our dear nation. On this note, I salute the chairman of today's occasion, the panelists, the moderator, accurate timekeeper, co-debaters, and my ever-attentive listeners. I am Youth Ambassador Wade Kike Lomo Precious, a bona fide student of Pure Wisdom Intellectual Schools, Okoga, Igbokoda. I stand this day to move and support a proposition which states negligence of the education sector is responsible for the present state of our nation. And may it be so moved. My reasons for supporting today's proposition cannot be overemphasized. One, the power of education. The Chief Judge said, you will concur with me that education is the superstructure upon which the other sectors subsist. Little wonder Nelson Mandela called it the strongest weapon to change the world. During the time of the First World War, China was one of the world's poorest, weakest, and most backward nations. But the educational revolution of the 1940s, shortly after the Second War, has positioned China as one of the most powerful and most. Isn't that remarkable? Secondly is the link between education and morality. The Chief Judge said, the education sector, as the mother of other sectors, is supposed to be the most powerful agent of social engineering and nation building, as it inculcates moral discipline in the citizenry. But in case of the Nigerian state, we run curricula that are American and British modeled, Westernization over Pan-Africanism, and immorality over our rich cultural moral conduct. Then, what else do you expect of our youths? Furthermore, is the death of technical education in Nigeria. The Chief Judge said, in the 1960s and 1970s, priority was placed on technical education, with many technical and teachers' colleges established. Those schools gave technical and vocational to the Nigerian populace, thereby giving them the necessary skills for employability. The Ayatollah community in ILAJE land was once the most technically advanced community in West Africa in the 1960s because of the priority placed on technical education. But today, we have about 400 universities and polytechnics giving men theoretical teaching, making our graduates practically unemployable. They lack the necessary skills for employability, a factor which has turned many of them to criminals. Further still is the sickly state of agric education. The Chief Judge said, in the 1960s and early 1970s, agric was the mainstay of the Nigerian economy. But the oil boom of the later part of the 1960s has shifted the attention of successive administrations to oil and gas, leaving the agric sector unattractive. Today in Nigeria, no youth wishes to study agric as a course in the tertiary education level. Not to even talk of becoming a farmer. The resultant effect is food scarcity and high cost of commodities, as we now rely on our West African agricultural imports. What a national shame! Finally, is the death of academic researches. The Chief Judge said, "It is true I'm still a secondary school student, but I know the fundamentality and necessity of academic research. Today, America, China, France, and others spend billions of dollars annually supporting academic researches, and that is why they are doing well. But the Nigerian government don't support research initiatives, and that is why our economy is in total shambles. As I conclude, if the Asiwaju Bola Ahmed-led administration fails to prioritize the education sector, Nigeria will continue to swim in the pool of what Honorable Patrick Obayago, the Domigodo of called peasantry solitude and supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Consequently, I submit the negligence of education sector is responsible for the present state of our dear nation. Thank you.
So wonderful. She has done great. As a reminder, our topic for this debate competition, the negligence of the education sector is responsible for the present state of our nation. So, can you clap your hands together as I welcome the OOH, Ojajuni Anita, for her presentation.
Governments at all levels in Nigeria have an indifferent attitude towards the educational sector towards the educational crisis of the education sector in their country. They have not articulated better ways of managing education to provide the needed quality for our children. Education policies are either not fit for the purpose or not yielding the desired results. On this note, I say good day the Astute Chief Judge and other perspicacious panelists, eloquent moderator, veracious timekeeper, my amiable co-debaters, good-looking parents and teachers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am Youth Ambassador, Princess Ojajuniboku Anita, a learner from the great citadel of learning, Pure Wisdom Intellectual Schools, Okoga Igbokoda, Ondo State. The debate topic before me states, negligence of the education sector is responsible for the present state of our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, my position in today's debate is yes to the proposition. My reasons for affirmation cannot be overemphasized. Firstly, is the curriculum being based on theory. Nigerian education system has over the years been described as lopsided, focusing more on impartation of knowledge through theories and leaving out the practicality of learning. Today in Nigeria, our educational curriculum is based on the theory, not practical. It is pure theory, garbage in, garbage out. According to the research work I made, I took two countries as a case study, Canada and China. In Canada, pupils at the elementary level came out projects because their curriculum encouraged that. Also, in China, the Chinese would not need much of theory to manufacture electronics. The Chief Judge, sir, I hope you know that virtually every house in China is a factory that produces one thing or the other. But today in Nigeria, a mechanical engineer can tell you what is wrong in a vehicle as he was taught. But in the partial sense of it, if it is a car bonnet, he may not know how to open it, not to talk of raising the car. In fact, our hypothesis information is a robbery in our society. The negligence of the Nigerian education sector is a great factor responsible for this, as curriculum is not be reviewed and redeveloped. Secondly, is the lack of training, seminar or workshop to teachers. Ladies and gentlemen, the the methodology of teaching and studying in most Nigerian schools has become a huge concern. The Chief Judge, sir, if I may ask, when last has the Nigerian government, through state government, conducted a training, seminar or workshop? Sincerely, these teachers are becoming unprofessionals. Imagine, no good teaching method, no instructional materials for effective teaching, no classroom management. Schools are only running a system known as notes memorization, popularly called La Cram, La Pour. Now I see reason why the Nigerian schools are producing ineffective and unproductive graduates. Furthermore, is the negligence of government on the area of provision of equipment. Ladies and gentlemen, the abject neglect of government has resulted to many schools lacking basic equipment to conducive learning. Most especially for science and technical classes. Not only that, the libraries in schools are lacking the needed books, journals and magazines. At this junction, I will be asking a question from the incorruptible panelists and the amiable audience. Do our government officials educate their children here in Nigeria? Yes or no? Are you saying yes? Yes. Everybody knows that our government officials are educating their children in abroad because of the neglect toward education sector. Our schools are lacking the needed books, facilities, apparatus, reagents. May God save Nigeria. More so is the inadequate inspection and supervision. We all know that school inspection plays a significant role in ensuring the quality of education. But in this present time, the Nigerian government does not give adequate inspection and supervision through appropriate agencies or bodies. So, my question here is that, how can governments then implement the national policies and goals without school inspections? Also, how can the government meet the challenges of globalization by creating a competitive workforce? Finally, is the reward of teachers. It's a pity that the face of teachers in Nigeria has not improved significantly. In some states of this country, some of our teachers have not been paid for close to 6 months, while some other teachers are paid a certain percentage, which is not even up half of their salary. When teacher is not well taken care of, they can't perform their duties. A hungry man, they say, is an angry man. For how long do we continue to see the reward in heaven? As I conclude, the negligence of the Nigerian government, the negligence of the educational sector is responsible for the present state of our nation. Once again, I remain my humble self, Youth Ambassador, Princess Ojajuni Bukun Anita.
That was awesome. That was awesome. Calling on the ninth speaker for today. The ninth speaker for today is Sonia from Fortune Gate Schools. Shall we clap our hands together for her?
Good day, the Chief Judge, the panel of judges, accurate timekeeper, co-debaters, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eze Sonia, a 10-year-old JSS2 student of Fortune Gate College, Igbokoda. I am here to speak in support of this motion, which states negligence of the education sector is responsible for the present state of our nation. To start with, it is pertinent to establish a working definition in the key word of this motion: negligence, education sector, and state. Negligence is a state or act of abandonment of a duty or action due to lack of will to invest in the required time, effort, or resources into making the subject. In this case, educational sector is success. And the word educational sector is simply the conglomeration or totality of everything nation. I have the following points to convince you all that negligence is the responsible for the present state of our nation. First and foremost, Nigeria is the foremost black nation in the world. People by great mind and world-acclaimed intellects like Wole Soyinka, Chika Obi, Anthony Joshua, of course, among others. Our place among this nation, as projected back in 1960, was to be one of the richest nations in this country. Indeed, Nigeria is blessed beyond imagination with mineral resources and mind to the envy of other nations. But my chief justice, how well have we all converted our potential into results? It is all in your education. The education of a people inform you how they live and relate. Sadly, Nigeria does not paint a good picture both home and abroad. The failure to ensure our educational system is well properly and monitored towards to serve as the bedrock of the terrible nation we found ourselves in today. Nigeria continues to switch educational system at will, 6 to 3, 3 to 4, 9 to 3 and 4, etc. Due to the copycat nation as we keep eyeing other nations to our treatment. The curriculum content to our university are mostly irrelevant to our national need. Little wonder, a degree certificate is hallowed over an HND. We have been producing shallow-minded graduates to contribute, who can't contribute in productivity or creativity, hence our stagnation. Also, inadequate education fought by the politicians due to some pot-belly opportunities to represent the interests of the people. In the past, schools are receiving running grants for the immediate needs, purchase books, lesson notes, etc. It is no longer history, as government no longer do the needful anymore. Indeed, as government no longer do the needful anymore. Scholarship no longer based on merit, but knowing someone at NDDC also padded the palace of our governor office. Our meritocracy is dead. Furthermore, corruption has further educational debt. Most educational officers are only looking for a way to vilify funds and fees through educational sector, through inflation and non-declaration of our fees. Come to think of it, a public exam used to be sacrosanct, have been bastardized through corruption and examination malpractice induced by those who will nominate teachers and some teachers who will take pride in their self-dependence. Moreover, the failure on the part of educational system like the stakeholder, like the parents, PTA, government, pressure group to demand and insist on the quality of educational system. The neglect of our quality controlled by the various sectors has led to the watering down of not only our school but nation. After all, the fruit of the quality is determined by the tree bearing it. In conclusion, the terrible state we find ourselves today is as the negligence of the education sector in Nigeria. The school is supposed to be a factory where general outlook of a nation is more child the way he should go, and when he grows, he will not depart from it. I am sure you will all agree with me that the poor state is dead due to the negligence on the education sector. May God heal Nigeria. It starts with you. I remain my humble self, Eze Sonia, a 10 years JSS student of college. Thanks.
Done great. Done great. She has done great. It is not an easy task to face the crowd. Once again, motivate her. Please, can you once again motivate her for her wonderful presentation? She has done well. So, we are moving towards to the end of the debate competition. And the second to the last, the 10th speaker for today's competition. Please, ladies and gentlemen, if your hands are not too busy, can you jam them together as I welcome to the podium Feyi Jimi Olajumoke for her wonderful presentation.
Over the last two tenures, statistically, an average of 6.7% of the annual budget in Nigeria is allocated to the education sector. Such a negligible percentage is allocated to a very important agent of development in our nation. Why do I agree, and why do you all have to be convinced that that the negligence of the education sector is responsible for the present state of our nation? Before I proceed, permit me to respectfully recognize the presence of invited guests of honor, the Chief Judge, other members of the panel of judges, the accurate keeper, the moderator, co-debaters, ladies and gentlemen present here today. My name is ILAJE, an SS3 student of Igbokoda Grammar School, Igbokoda. I am here to support the motion which says negligence of education sector is responsible for the present state of our nation. Kindly hearken to me as I give to you my convincing reasons. First, the negligence of education sector is responsible for the production of uncreative university graduates, the unproductivity of our nation, Nigeria, based on the inability of graduates to creatively solve the existing problem of the nation. You solely cannot blame the graduate for the lack of. You should blame the negligence of the education sector by leaders and every other person involved in the education sector. If the education sector has put in much more funds and every other person involved in the education sector has put in more effort by displaying passion, motivation, self-conscience, and talent, every needed ingredient to optimize the creativity of our leaders will be put in place and implemented. Furthermore, the negligence of the education sector has caused a high crime rate. Everybody in the audience will agree with me that the present state of this nation defines a high crime rate scene. The predominant reason this is so is that the education sector has been allowed to crumble. Not enough motivation and hope are embedded in the education sector. If you look at the education sector in the nation, you will be discouraged. Instead of getting motivated to pursue education, young ones, youth, have resorted into carrying out crimes just to satisfy themselves. In addition to the point I have explained, the negligence of the education sector has caused a high rate of unemployment. Again, ladies and gentlemen, sure we also agree with me that the present state of this nation also defines an unemployment world, a world where graduates do not have a work or are not employed. This breaks down to the negligence of the education sector in our nation. The education sector should be seen as a way of reducing unemployment in our nation, but the nation have allowed the education sector to crumble. And that is why we are where we are today with increased unemployment rates. More to the point I have raised, the negligence of the education sector has caused a high level of poverty rates. Again and again, ladies and gentlemen, you always also agree with me that the present state of this nation also defines a high level of poverty rates. All the points I have explained before now is a nexus that led me to this particular point. Come to think of it, if educated ones are not creative and inventive, will they be employed? If they are not employed, is it not enough reason to show that the negligence of the education sector has a hand in increasing rate of poverty in our nation? The last point I'll be explaining today's debate competition topic is the negligence of the education sector has increased in the emergence of poor leaders. One thing that is obvious presently in this nation is having an uneducated, indecisive, untalented leaders lead us in some ways. Are you wondering how this has contributed to the negligence of the education sector has contributed to this? If the education is poorly funded and the sector lacks motivation, talent, and hope, believe me, poor leaders are bettered. At this juncture, the Chief Judge, other members of the panel of ladies and gentlemen present here today, I hope I've been able to convince you that the negligence of the education sector is responsible for the present state of our nation. The production of uncreative university graduates, high crime rate, high level of poverty rate, the high rate of unemployment, and the emergence of poor leaders, as I rightfully explained, are the result for neglecting the education sector in our nation. I hope Nigeria will look into this and correct their errors in the education sector. Thanks.
we gradually are at the end of the competition. Thank you very much, Olajuwon, for presentation. And I want to seize this opportunity to say a job well done to my colleagues that have assisted me in this moderation. To Favor and Gospel, you guys are wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, please jam in together for those guys. Easy. Thank you very much. I am grateful. Right. The chief judge is present. Let's just buy him a few minutes. Much.
Please, engineer, give us a music there. If you have one. Olasemojo, back on stage.
This is pending the time our judges will be back on seat. Please, Evangelist Olasemojo.